All right, we all have green on the left, notes on the right, right? Okay, so how many of you guys have ever heard of the word interest? Interest. Okay, now I'm not talking about the interest like, oh yeah, I'm interested in that video game. Okay, not that kind of interest. I'm talking about money interest, right? A lot of us have actually heard the word. I bet you though, if I really found out how many of you actually knew what it meant, most of us don't know what it really means. And that's okay. You guys are 7th graders. I don't expect you to know what it means, right? Except that's what I'm going to tell you guys. I'm going to tell you what it means today. All right, and how it's in our lives. You guys shouldn't have to really worry about actually knowing this stuff or using this stuff quite yet, because the stress involved, that's for you as you get older. Okay, however, I do want to say this. Today we're going to talk about something called simple interest. Now what today's objective is, as a 7th grader, is you guys need to know kind of how interest works in general. Okay? When you guys get to 8th grade, interest is more what's called compounded interest, and that's what you guys are going to learn next year as 8th graders. Okay, so, but right now, simple interest is where we're going to go with this, just to give you a good, pretty close idea of what interest is and how it works. All right? So, the nice part about today is a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is pretty much in a story. All right, so you can actually, for a little while until we start doing our vocab notes, you can actually I'm giving you permission, put down your pencil, listen to the story as I talk about this, okay? Okay, so it is a little bit of story time, so here's what we do. Let's say this morning, right, you got up. Obviously, the morning seems like so long ago, right? But this morning you got up, and let's say your alarm didn't go off. It's one of those mornings. It didn't go off, you forgot to set it, whatever the case, and you have to get to school where you're not tardy to first period. So you get up, you get going, you just throw on some clothes, and head over to school. However you head over to school, you get into first period, you barely make it on time. So you're sitting there and you're in first period, you go by, first period goes pretty well. And then all of a sudden, second period rolls around, and about halfway through, your stomach starts talking to you. It starts growling. And you realize you haven't had anything to eat. You didn't have time to eat this morning. You didn't even think about it until now. But initially you're thinking, not a big deal, because I've got break coming up after second period, so I'm just going to go ahead and go get something to eat at the snack bar. The issue is you reach into your pockets, nothing is there. You don't have any money. So at first you're kind of thinking, well, not a big deal. I'm still not stressed out because I might have to wait till lunch, but all I'll do is I'll go outside this door after my second period class, go to break, and I'll pick up my cell phone or someone else's cell phone, and I'll call home. I'll call somebody. Someone will either bring me food or money, not a big deal. Then I'll just eat at lunch. Well, you get outside and you make as many possible phone calls as you can, and of all days, nobody is picking up. Nothing. You are extremely hungry and you can't get a hold of anybody. So now is when you start stressing. You go to third period and now your stomach starts cramping to the point where about halfway through, you're having a hard time focusing on your teacher's lesson. Then, after third period ends, you go over to fourth period, and at this point, your stomach, it might be partially mental because you're thinking about it so much, but your stomach just feels like it's just tearing apart. You're so hungry, you need something to eat. You have to have something to eat. No money. Now, there's another issue that's involved here, and that is you're looking around in your fourth period class, and you may have lots of friends in life, and you hang out with a bunch of people at break or at home or whatever else outside of school. Unfortunately, fourth period is one of those classes where you've gotten to know a lot of people, but they're more acquaintances than friends. It wouldn't be someone you'd hang out with outside of school. You may talk to them in class about the work and help each other or whatever else, but they're not people that you're extremely comfortable with in that way, that you can talk about personal things like money. But guess what? You have no other choice. You just have to suck it up and you turn to the person next to you. And again, this person isn't a close friend. They're nice, they're very polite, but you have this hesitancy to ask them for money. You have to do it anyway. It's the only thing you can do. So you turn to this person and you say, you tell them the situation. You're like, I'm so hungry. I forgot my money. I woke up late. Is there any way that I can borrow $3 for lunch today? I'm just going to go to the cafeteria. $3 for lunch, please. Is there any way? Now, just like you were hesitant to talk to this person and ask them for money, they don't know how reliable you are when it comes to money. They don't know if they're going to get paid back. So while they like you, they're a little hesitant. So here's what they do. They think about it a while, and then they turn to you and say, you know what? I'll make you a deal. I will give you your $3 where you can eat. However, tomorrow during class, when you come to class, after I give you your $3 today, tomorrow you need to give me back $4. And of course, you're so hungry, without worrying about it, you take that deal, you get your $3, you go eat, your stomach's good, and because, of course, all you have great character, you bring $4 for that person the following day, pay them back, and everything's good. Okay? Now, fast forward about 5 years. You are now a senior in high school. 5 years from now. And you're sitting there in class, listening to people talk. Well, see, you have a job. You have this little side job as a senior. You make a little bit of money to be able to pay maybe for gas on a little car that you might drive from home to school back and forth maybe. And you might pay for your insurance. And you have a little bit of spending money where you can go to the movies and hang out with your friends at the mall or whatever else you want to do. The issue, though, is that your little job only pays for those things. You might maybe put like $5 or $10 away from each paycheck inside of the bank if you have a savings account, okay? But that's all you're making. But here's what's happening. In class, you hear all of these people talking. And they bring it to your attention that the new hot item that just came out was the PS5. The PS5. And you have to have it. You're not even a gamer and you have to have this PS5. This thing is unbelievable. Everyone's talking about it. It's nothing like you've ever seen before. You have to have it. Everyone's getting it. You want it. But ladies and gentlemen, this thing, this PS5 is $600. And you do not have $600 saved up from your job. And you could save up $600 at some point. It's going to take you a very long time. But you need it now because you just want to play it and be able to talk to everyone about your PS5 as well. So while you don't have the money and no one else has the money for you to borrow, someone brings up a good point. You being a senior in high school, maybe 18 years old at the time, they say, you know what? Go to the bank. Talk to the local bank. So you go to the bank and you talk to them. And they talk to you about some ways that maybe you can get it. And they turn around and give you a paper that you sign. And about 2 weeks later, what comes through the mail is something that looks just like this. A credit card. A credit card. So guess what? You open that thing up, you call, you activate it, you go as fast as you can down to the local store, and you get a brand new PS5 for $600. And you love it. You play it, you get to talk about it with all your friends now. That is awesome. Your $600 PS5. However, there's a catch. See, when you were in 7th grade, you borrowed money. And that person that you borrowed the $3 from, they asked you for a favor in return, and that was to give them an extra $1 back when you paid it back. Okay? The bank is also kind of like your 7th grade version of the person sitting next to you. When you ask them for a favor, like a credit card, and that's what a credit card is, you're basically, every time you swipe it, you're borrowing money from the bank. They're then going to turn around and ask you for a favor. And that is simple interest. See, they don't ask you to pay back $601. It's not that simple. What they do is they ask you to pay a percentage, of course, that's what we're talking about in math class, right? They ask you to pay a percentage of what you borrowed. So here's the thing. If you go get a credit card, especially when you're very young and it's your very first credit card, it is, highly likely that this credit card, they're going to charge you 25% interest. Now, if you don't really know what that means, that's what we're going to talk about today in our lesson, but let me just say this. 25% interest means that you're going to have to pay back an extra 25%, okay? It's called 25%, the APR, which is the annual percentage rate. What that means is in one annual being 1 year, in 1 year you have to pay back an extra 25%. So if you still don't know what that means, let me say this. Your $600 PS3, if you pay it back in 1 year, it's not going to cost you $600. It's going to cost you $750. Now, more than likely, your PS5 that you needed so badly, you're not going to probably pay it back in 1 year. It might take you 2 years. That's a little more realistic. In 2 years, your PS5 is not going to cost you $600. It's going to cost you a whopping $900 if you take 2 years to pay it. All because you owe the bank the extra money of interest. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how this is affecting. I'm going to refer back to our story throughout the lesson, but this is what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to show you guys how to calculate this. So what I need you guys to do, of course, like I said, green on the left, notes on the right. Our lesson is on simple interest. So let's go ahead and let's go to our very first word in your vocab. Okay, that word is principle. Everyone? Principle. Well, let's try that one more time. Principle, everyone? Principle. All right, so this, even though it's spelled like it, principal is not the person that is head of your school. Okay, this is a little different when it comes to interest. So here's what the principal is. It's the amount of money deposited or borrowed. The amount of money deposited or borrowed. So basically, the principal, when you guys are talking about your 7th grade self, the principal, the money you borrowed was $3, right? That was the principal, how much you needed for lunch. When you talk about your high school senior year and you need the PS5, it was what the principal on your credit card was $600. Okay, so that is the principal. So in your little box off to the right, we'll just call it the starting money. It's the starting money. Okay, basically what you start off with on what you started off with when it came to what you borrowed. Okay, now I do want to point this out just on a little side note. Okay, and that is the word deposited. Okay, deposited. Now, what deposited means is this. Okay, is that deposit means that, and this is a little different. I'll be talking more about borrowing money because it tends to make a little more sense for my 7th graders. But deposit is, if you've ever heard of like investing money, or if you've ever heard of like a savings account, really, if you give the bank your money, it's almost like you're letting them borrow your money. They actually pay you interest. So if you let someone borrow your money, they pay you interest. Okay. So when it talks about borrowing money, that's what that means. It can happen. Now, their interest for paying you it is way smaller than what you have to pay the bank if you borrow their money. Okay, so just kind of where you know. But that's what it means if you see something that says borrowed. So it's it's either the money you borrowed or the money that you're loaning to the bank. You've deposited. Okay? All right, so the next word is the phrase, which is our lesson, simple interest. Everyone? Simple interest. All right, so here's what simple interest is. It's the amount paid or earned for the use of the money. So, your 7th grade self, right? You borrow the $3. When you pay it back, you have to pay back $4. But $4 isn't the interest. The interest is that favor money. The interest was the $1 extra you had to pay back. That was the interest. That was the simple interest. Okay? The equivalency of the credit card, okay? Let's say it took you 2 years to pay off your PS5. Okay? Your $600 is your principal. Because it took you $900 to pay it all off, the interest ended up being $300. That was your simple interest. Okay? So the interest is that favor money, the extra money you have to pay because of the favor of borrowing money. Okay, so in your little box off to the right, I want you to write that down. We'll talk about it in a second. Go ahead and write down I equals PRT. I equals PRT. I equals PRT. Now all those letters stand for something, and we're going to use that a lot in today's homework, on today's lesson. Okay, here's what I'd like you to do. On your notes, right, a majority of you guys will have down below the notes about percent equation on the very bottom. So we've already used that bottom margin there. So what I want you to do is just flip to the back. The back should be blank. Go ahead and flip to the back. And I want you to go ahead and write this down. Go ahead and write down simple interest formula. Simple interest formula. All right, simple interest formula. Here's what I want you to write. Again, I equals PRT. That is the simple interest formula that we're going to be using. It's basically like it's setting up an equation is what it's setting up. Okay, it helps us set it up correctly. So here's why I want you to write this, is because I need you to write all of this down, because all of this tells you what those letters mean. So the I is the interest. The I is the interest. Okay, that's the extra money. And if you want to find out what the extra money is going to cost, the favor money, here's how you figure it out. You take the principal, that's the P, that's the amount of money you borrowed. You multiply it by the APR, which is the annual percentage rate, which is the percent. And then you turn around, and if you were just to solve that, that would tell you the interest in 1 year, but sometimes it's not 1 year that you borrow it. So you have to multiply it with the amount of time it's going to take you to pay it back. So I equals PRT is interest equals principal times rate times time. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead, and you can put your notes away, grab your book, and let's go ahead and flip over to page 171. Eyes up here as soon as you're ready to go. Well, I'll let you see it after class if you need to. I want you to just get caught up right now with me. Be right here on page 171. Okay, here we go. Thank you, those of you who are ready. All right. On page 171, all right, the directions say find the simple interest earned to the nearest cent for each principal, interest rate, and time. Now, by the way, just the nearest cent, guys, means basically to the nearest penny, which means to the nearest hundredths. So if you look at our place value poster up there, the hundredths basically, right? There's 2 digits to the right of the decimal. That's what we're rounding to if there's pennies or change in our money. Okay, here we go. So what we have is, for problem number 1, let's go ahead and let's start with step 1. Step 1 is, let's go ahead and write down our simple interest formula. I equals PRT. Now, this isn't like other days. I don't want you to write this once. I'm actually asking you to write it every single problem because it's going to help set up your equation where you can solve it properly. All right. So if we set this up, then step 2 is we're going to plug the numbers into the correct spot. All right. So for number 1, it's giving us the $640. That is actually the principal. So this whole top part's asking us for the interest. So I'll go ahead and just keep I there. The principal for number 1, it says is $640. So I'm going to plug in 640 for the P. Now, for the rate, which is the percentage, I take a look, it's 3%. Now, please be careful. Do not plug in 3. Remember what we talked about when we talked about percent equation. Anytime you use any type of an equation when it comes to percent, you always put in the decimal form. So, for example, 3%, remember, move the decimal over twice. I'm plugging in 0.03, 300ths. Now, the time it says it's going to take us to pay it back is 2 years. So I'm going to put the 2 in for time. Time is always in years. Remember, APR, annual percentage rate, annual being a year. So in this case, it's 2. All right, now, step 3. For step 3, we're going to write 2 simple words, and we've seen this before. All right, we're going to either simplify, okay, if there's no equation to solve, if it's just an expression, or you are going to need to solve if it's an equation. So, taking my calculator here, I notice everything is on the one side. I mean, it's just an expression. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to punch in 640 times 0.03 300ths. Now listen, if I hit the equal sign, that right there represents $19.20. That's how much it would be in 1 year. That would be the amount of interest we would owe. However, remember, it's not 1 year. We need to multiply this still by the 2 right here because it's 2 years that we borrowed it. And here's what we have. 38 4/10. Now, there is in this particular problem, something you need to watch out for. There is like a step 4, and that is because we're talking about interest, we're talking about money, right? It's that extra money. So in this case, we need to make it look like money. So remember, first off, put your units of a dollar sign. And the second thing you need to do is round to the nearest cent. Or actually, in this case, you need to put a cent there, which means 0 cents. So what we have is our final answer. The interest would be $38.40. Okay, questions on that?
What was step 2?
Step 2 is you're just putting the numbers in. Okay, and it's very important. Make sure you put the numbers into the correct spot. PRT. There's our principal. That is our rate, and that is our time. Okay.
What if there's 2 numbers with a decimal between them?
2 numbers for, you're talking about like if you had in your answer like 8.2.
No problem.
You would just plug it in, unless it's a rate. I mean, if it's a percentage, then you'd move it over the decimal over twice. Okay, guys? Did I see a hand up over here? We all right? Okay.
Like number 2.
Okay, guys. Let's focus in on one problem at a time here. Actually, okay. Number 2. It's a similar problem, so I'll answer your question. Sorry.
It says 4.25%, and how do you change that to a decimal?
Same way I did here. Move the decimal 2 times to the left. Okay. Always, guys. If you're changing a percent to a decimal, you always move it 2 times to the left. If you're changing it from a decimal form to percent form, 2 times to the right. All right, guys, here we go. Problem number 2. That's why I wanted to answer that question. Problem number 2. Go ahead and get started. Problem number 2. Guys, don't forget to get your logs signed tonight if you haven't gotten it signed already. Okay. How many of you are still working on that? Okay. Check in with you in about another 30 seconds. All right, how many of you still need more time? Okay, I'm going to give you guys about another 15 seconds, and then I'm going to have you guys share. Guys, make sure we're trying it on ours. You're going to have time to share. Try it on your own for right now. Read your notes. Let the notes help you. Okay, 30 seconds. Turn to your neighbor and share. Go.
I did the hardest way. I did when I got 25. You got 25. You got 25.
Wait, so you multiplied the you got
So how do I do it? Did you
the same answer?
divide this by this and then times it by that? Oh, so it times everything?
Okay, here we go. Guys, if you ever notice, whenever I do the problem that you guys just did together, I'm going to walk through the notes. You're going to see how I'm following my own notes to help me with this problem. Some of us struggle during this time, and you never ever look back at the notes as a resource. That's the reason why we take notes, is to use them to help you out. Not just because we're making it look pretty on our paper. It's as a resource to help yourself. Okay, so watch. Here we go. So same kind of problem, same directions. I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, well, step one, right, is to write I equals PRT, my simple interest formula. Okay, the principal on this one says I borrow $1,500. So I'm going to go ahead. We're still figuring out interest, so I'm going to put in $1,500 for the P, just like I put 640 in here. The percentage, last was 3%. Remember, I moved the decimal over twice. This one is 4.25%. Just because it looks different doesn't mean that all of a sudden all the rules in mathematics change. I'm still moving the decimal over 2 times to the left. So when I plug it in, I'm plugging in 0.0425. I'm now going to go ahead and put in my years. And they say this one we're paying back in 4 years. It's going to take us 4 years to pay it back. So here we go. Step 3, right? Simplify or solve. Well, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and take my calculator and just start solving this, or simplifying it. 1,500 times 0.0425. Now, if I hit equals, right, 6375 is in 1 year, but again, I want to multiply that with 4. Ladies and gentlemen, I equals 255. And remember, step 4 here is make sure it looks like money. Now, considering there's no decimal point, that's all dollars. So I just put my dollar sign there. And our interest in 4 years is $255. Okay, guys, go ahead and write your question if you have a question. Write it down. All right? I'm going to go ahead. We have 2 more types of problems I want to go over before the lesson's over. All right, so here's what I want you to do. Let's go ahead. Let's go to problem number 7 on our homework here. Okay? It's a word problem. All right, so let's go ahead and close read this word problem. Here we go. Leon charged $75 at an interest rate of 12.5%. How much will Leon have to pay after 1 month if he makes no payments? All right, now, here's what we do. Okay, the problem is going to be very similar. The steps are going to be very similar. So, here we go. I equals PRT. Step 2, I'm going to plug my numbers in. So, here we go. I'm going to start on this, and I'll just put I equals. Now, the principal is how much is borrowed. Well, it says Leon charged, like on a charge card, a credit card, $75. That's our principal. That's how much is being borrowed. So 75. All right. The rate is 12.5%. Again, don't forget, when we plug it in, we have to put it in as a decimal point. So 0.125. There's my rate. And the time is 1 what, guys?
1.
Ooh, this one is a little different. It's not a year. If you put in 1, it's good. Your answer is going to be off because that will be telling you how much interest in 1 year, not 1 month. We all know that a month is not the same as a year. How many months are in a year, guys?
12.
Here's what I'm going to do. Look at this. I'm going to make it a fraction out of 12. So guess what a month is? Yeah, 1/12. 1 out of 12 months, or 1 out of 12 months, 12 months being a year, 1 month is 1/12 of a year. Now, so first thing you need to watch for is if they tell you months, make sure you put it over 12. Now, there is another little twist to this that we're going to talk about here in a second. So, now, I've plugged in all my numbers. Now I'm going to calculate. This is going to be a little different, so watch carefully. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to multiply the 75 times the 0.125 and get 9.375. Now the reason is because I cannot put 1/12 in my calculator. But it's not going to be much harder. Watch. I'm going to multiply this with 1/12. Here's all I do. I put that over 1. Okay, just like a normal multiplication of fraction problem. And now don't freak out because here's all we're doing. We're just multiplying it straight across. So 9.375 times 1 is 9.375. 1 times 12 is 12. Guys, remember, this is a fraction, but remember, this is division. Now I can use my calculator. 9.375 divided by 12 equals, and look what I end up with. 0.78125. Now remember, if I make this look like money, which is what step 4 is, I'm going to put my dollar sign, and remember I'm going to round to the nearest cent, which is the nearest hundredths. So ladies and gentlemen, what's my interest? We don't know what $0.78 is? 78 cents. But, hold off, here's the next twist. Remember in our 7th grade problem, you had to borrow money for your lunch? What was the interest on that? How much, what was the favor money? $1. How much do you have to pay him back? $4. Those are 2 different questions I just asked you. On these problems, they can give you the same problem, but ask you either one of those questions. They can ask you, what's the interest? Or if we take a look at this problem, it says, how much will Leon have to pay after 1 month? It doesn't ask about interest. They want to know how much do you have to pay. So think about it. We borrowed $3 in our 7th grade lunch imaginary problem. We paid $1 interest, so guess what? To get 3 and 1 and to get the $4 we paid them back, what did we do with those 2 numbers? We had them. It's the same thing here, guys. How much did we borrow? Or how much in this problem did Leon borrow? $75. And this, guys, is step 5. we're going to add the 78 cents. And for hopefully all of you guys, that's mental math. How much does he have to pay back?
$75.78.
Very good. $75.78. Okay, now there is one other type of problem. And here's what I want us to take a look at. Problem number 8. Let's close read this. It says Jamira received a $3,000 car loan. She plans on paying off the loan in 2 years. At the end of 2 years, Jamira will have paid $450 in interest. What is the simple interest rate on the car loan? So here we go. Step 1. I equals PRT. Step 2. I'm plugging in numbers. So here we go. The principal means how much her loan is. It was $3,000. The time is there. It's 2 years. Look at T. I'm leaving a space for the R, for the rate. But look at what else it says. What's the $450? Yeah. This is the first time we've seen one of these. $450 goes on this side. It's the interest that's being paid. They want to know what is the rate. I'm going to change it to a lowercase r like a variable. This will sometimes happen. That's why using the formula is so important. So here we go. Step 3, remember, is to simplify or solve. Well, in this case, we're going to do both. We're going to go ahead and put 450 equals, and then look, 3,000. I'm going to multiply the 3,000 and the 2, because associative property multiplication lets us do that. We get 6,000 times r. I go ahead, I need to isolate the variable, right? So it's being multiplied with 6,000. I'm going to divide by 6,000 on that side and on the other side. So when these 6,000s cancel out, this is going to give us our rate. So here we go. 450 divided by 6,000. And on the calculator, look what I get. 0.075. Now remember, this is the percent, which means this is the decimal form. So guys, if we're going to talk about this, step 4 is make it look like a percent instead of money. So I need to convert this or move it over twice, and I get the rate of 7.5%. All right, guys, simple interest.